Welcome to Highline Excel class number 36. Hey, if you want to download this workbook and follow along, click on my YouTube channel, then click on my college website link, and you can download the workbook. Week 7, Business 214, start and finish. Hey, the next 4 videos and the next series of sheet tabs, we're going to be talking about array formulas. Now, I just want to start out with a basic example, show you what an array formula does, and then I'm going to back up a little bit and kind of show you what an array is and all that kind of stuff. Hey, we have some units and some prices. I'm going to highlight these whole cell, and I'm going to do a non-array formula, a regular formula first, and then we'll compare it to an array formula. In the active cell right there, I'm going to say equals that cell in this column right here, that's the units, times the price. And that'll give us the sales for this particular transaction. Now I'm going to Control Enter. Control Enter just populates all the cells with this formula. Right? And then we come down here and add Alt equals. Now, an array formula is going to allow us to do all of these calculations in one single cell. And one advantage to array formulas is that it saves space. So sometimes you don't want to take up all the extra space in your spreadsheet. You just want to do a total. Now let's go ahead and I'll just show you. Alt equals, and it's guessed wrong, but I want you to highlight that range right there, and then do multiply, and this range right here. Oh, that's not allowed. If you Control Enter, it gives you a value error. A value error says, in general, it says that you forgot to put this array formula in properly, or it says that you have a incorrect operator. And if you look here, we're not allowed to, in normal formulas, take a range and do some operation on another range. But watch this. The secret keyboard shortcut to put an array formula in a cell is you hold Control and Shift and then hit Enter. So Control Shift Enter. And there it calculates it all in one formula. Now this is an array formula. Notice up here there's a curly bracket. You cannot type those in. Those get automatically put in when you Control Shift Enter. And you know you're doing an array formula when you have to Control Shift Enter. Now I want to run Formula Evaluator on this and notice some things. I'm going to go up to Formula, Formula Auditing, Formula Evaluator. In 2003, you go up to the Tools menu. And let's just take a look here. It's highlighting all this. I'm going to click Evaluate. Notice it has curly brackets, a number, a semicolon, another number, a semicolon, another number, a semicolon, another number. And are those numbers the same as right here, 110, 46, 100, 147? You betcha. And later we'll see that array syntax, you always have curly brackets. That's an array. That tells you that it's an array. Those semicolons means rows. If these were set up in columns, they'd be separated by commas. We'll talk about that in a second. All we're noticing here is that the sum function has an array inside of it because we multiplied. You can see up here we multiplied that range times that range. But it did it all in one formula. Now I'm going to click Close. And now I kind of want to back up a little bit and start from the beginning. That's just an introduction to our first array formula. Let's back up here. I'm going to go up to the top of the sheet. I have lots of notes and examples for this the next couple of videos. Now here we have some numbers, and I want to right here do Alt equals, and now it's got a range of cells. So it says B12 to E12. That's a range. That is different than an array. Now I'm going to hit Enter. Now I want to Alt equals again, and I want to highlight this same range here. But now I want you to highlight, and I'm going to scroll over a little bit like that. Highlight this, and if you hit the F9 key on a range of values, hit the F9 key, that's a value. Oops, that won't work there because hit F9, and it converts it to an array right here in the formula. So now instead of having these cells, which is what you always want for spreadsheets, because then you can change these numbers in your formula update. But now we've hard coded, and it's using array syntax. Curly brackets, commas are for columns. I always think of a comma starts with the letter C, so that means commas. Semicolons mean row. And I always think, well, okay, that's column, comma, the other one is semicolon. Now, if I hit enter, it will add that right there, but it's because we're not doing we're not doing some operation on two ranges. So the sum. Now let's just do a slightly different example. 1, 1, 1, and then below I'm going to Alt equals. And now notice it's highlighted. Just hit the F9 key. Oh, you can see that array. There's the curly brackets, and the numbers are separated by semicolons. That's because they're in rows. And I'm going to hit enter. Let's look at another example of array syntax, because what we're talking about is array syntax. Now, very rarely are you ever going to type in array syntax like this. But as we do more and more complicated array formulas, and we look at formula evaluator, it sometimes is helpful to know what a curly bracket, a comma, and in this case, a semicolon means. Let's look at another example. VLOOKUP. We did this a couple times already in this class, equals VLOOKUP. And what I want to do is I want to look up that value, comma. I want to take this table array right here. And so that's the whole table. The VLOOKUP will take this, race through here. When it finds a match, it'll go over to some column. So I'm going to type comma, and the column index, column 1, column 2. So I'm going to type a 2. Comma, and then we either need an approximate match for numbers with gaps between them or exact match. We have words here, so we want to exactly match and find product 2, so I'm going to put a 0. Close parentheses, Control Enter. OK, so the VLOOKUP works. Now I'm going to hit F2, highlight this, Control C. This is like scooping the formula out. And then I'm going to click down here, F2, Control V. Now I want to highlight this range right here, and then I'm going to use the F9 key to evaluate. F9. And look, it shows us array syntax. Now notice there's the curly bracket. There's a comma, which means column. So if we look up here, part, go over to the next column, same row, 25. So that's what that comma means. And then semicolon. Semicolon means go down to the next row. Part 2, $10. We have part 2 and $10. So curly brackets encase the array. Comma means column. Semicolons means row. And the final bit of syntax is words have to be in quotes. Numbers can just be numbers. Now, this is a way of hard coding your table into your VLOOKUP. And there's an important point here. We're just looking at this to see array syntax, because later it helps us when we're doing a formula evaluator and understanding how an array formula works. If we put this formula right here, VLOOKUP, a single cell, and there's a table, right? Notice on the screen tip it says table array. So this function doesn't care if you actually build an array like that or you actually use a range of cells. So when I Control Enter, that's just a regular formula. If you look up in the formula bar here, there are no curly brackets. That is not an array formula. It's just using an array built with array syntax. Now watch this. If I go ahead and highlight this and delete it, this one, of course, doesn't work because there's no more table there, but that one does. That's a trick if you have a VLOOKUP and you don't want to waste a lot of real estate in your spreadsheet, so you build the table right into your formula. Now I'm going to Control Z because I want that there. Now that's enough about array syntax. Let's go down, and before we look at a bunch of examples, I want to talk about 3 different things that array formulas do. And this is different than regular formulas. These are the 3 things that array formulas can do. Do operations on arrays instead of individual cells. We looked at one example where we multiplied a column times another and then used the sum function and Control-Shift-Enter. Another thing that array formulas can do is there are functions like transpose, frequency, mmult, which are array formulas or array functions. They don't even work unless you use Control-Shift-Enter to put your formula in. So these are array functions. Finally, array formulas will allow ranges or arrays to go into function arguments where the function is expecting a single value. We'll see a great example where the if function and SUMIF are expecting a single cell, but we're going to put a whole array or a whole range into that argument and then use Control-Shift-Enter. So those are the three main differences from regular formulas. Of course, the main big difference is how you enter them. These are the three things that they do differently than regular formulas. Now I have a bunch of notes here. There's that big red note, Control-Shift-Enter. Array formulas don't work unless you do that. You have to tell Excel that this is an array formula. Now I want to do this one again now that we have understand array, range, and a few other things. Highlight these whole cells. And notice we have a column and another column. And we simply want to multiply this times this, this times this, this times this, this times this. This is a 4 by 1. And if you look up in the name box is right there. When you highlight this, it says 4 rows by 1 column. So that's our first array. And this one is also 4 rows by 1 column. So I'm going to highlight this here. And in that cell right there, I'm going to say equals this single cell right here times this single cell. This is a normal formula. We're not doing operations on ranges. Now I'm going to Control-Enter, which is different than Control-Shift-Enter. Control-Enter just populates all the cells with whatever regular formula you have. And there's our amounts. I'm going to come down here just as we did before, Alt equals. That adds them up. And here I'm going to do my array formula. The array formula has the advantage that we won't have to make this column. We can just do it in one cell. Alt equals is the keyboard shortcut. And then I highlight this 4 by 1, and I type the multiplication symbol. This 4 by 1 range there. I have my array formula, and to enter it, I hold Control and Shift, and then hit Enter. So it's Control Shift and hit Enter. Now, what it did actually was this. We said equals this times this plus this times this plus this times this plus this times this. And that's how it works. It takes whatever the corresponding cell is here and multiplies it by the corresponding cell here and then adds it. And so we get 403. Now there is an alternative to this sum function when you're multiplying ranges. There's an alternative, and it's called sum product. Because what we did here, notice we multiplied each related element in the two arrays, and then once we did all that multiplying, we did the adding. And so there's a function called sum product. And what does sum product do? Sum means add, and product means multiply. So let's try this. And the advantage to this is the sum product, you don't have to use Control-Shift-Enter. It's a function that actually is built just for array multiplication. Equals sum product. And notice even the screen tip says array 1, array 2, array 3. So for the sum product, I'm going to highlight this one and then type a comma. The screen tip reminds me, and then highlight this right here. So I have two columns or two ranges that have the same dimension. They could be ranges or arrays, but they have to be the same dimension. When you type a comma, then this one has to be the same dimension. Now I'm just going to hit Enter and watch what happens. It calculates it. Now there's lots of examples where you're multiplying and adding, so you can use the sum product. There's lots, and so you don't have to use this sum Control-Shift-Enter. Notice the curly brackets. So curly brackets say it's an array formula. Now, there'll be lots of array formulas where we don't want to simply do multiplying and adding, so we can't use the sum product. But in this example, I just had to show you that parallel there. Now I want to scroll down and look at some examples of array formulas where we're doing operations on ranges and we're not adding. Okay, here's our next example, and I have lots of notes if you download this about what we're doing here. Here we have sample weight begin and sample weight end, and we want to calculate the change and then find the minimum. Which one changed the least? I'm going to highlight this whole range, and in the active cell right there, I'm going to say equals whatever the n number is minus our begin number. Now I'm going to control enter. I have all the cells highlighted, so control enter just populates all the cells with our normal formula. Then I'm going to click here and do equals min, minimum, highlight the range, and then hit enter. And it calculated 0.3. It found the smallest one. But wait a second. 0.25 is the smallest one. Oh, guess what? We're being tricked by formatting. I'm going to go up to the home ribbon and then right here and increase the decimal. Ooh, that's pretty tricky. Now let's see how to do this in one formula. Again, one of the advantages of array formulas, if you don't want to spend all the real estate, you can do it in one formula. Oh, but what do we do here, right? In each cell, we just said that related cell minus that related cell in this column, and then the same thing all the way down. So it was really this whole column minus this whole column and find the min. So in this cell right here, we're going to do equals min. We'll highlight the first range. Do an operation range to range, so I'm going to do minus instead of multiplying, and then highlight this one. Close parentheses, and now let me just hit control enter, and look what happens. Value error. When you're doing array formulas, when you see that a value error, it almost always means you forgot to do control shift enter. So I'm going to hit F2 and now do control shift enter. And there it found the smallest one, the min. Now that one obeyed me perfectly. It just wasn't right. We have the wrong ranges. So I'm going to simply highlight the guts of this and go, broop. Oh yeah, the end minus the begin. Now I'm going to control shift enter, and there we have it. 0.25. Now, why did it have that custom number formatting? If you look in each one of these cells, see the number up here, it's 13. That's custom number formatting. Control 1. Control 1 gives us format cells. That took a long time. And you can see there's a custom number formatting. You can put words in cells in the custom section. You have your number format and then whatever words in quotes. It'll show up, but it's not actually in the cell. When we did that formula, it actually sucked the formatting from there. So if you want to get rid of it, you can apply the general format, Control 1. Now, maybe we do. These are all in pounds, so maybe we actually want to do that. I'm going to highlight the column, Control 1, come down here, and in the type, I'm going to type 0.00 double quotes space LBS end double quote. And that's how you put words in a cell even though they're not there. All right, so that was the min. Let's do one for the max. Here's our end stock value and our begin, and I want to calculate the change. I'm going to highlight the whole range, and in the active cell, I'll say equals our end amount minus our begin amount. Control enter to populate all those cells. We have our change. Let's do the max. Equals max, and we'll highlight this whole range right here and enter. So our max is 12. Looks like we didn't do so well on the rest of our stock picks. Now, how can we avoid doing this whole column? We'll do an array formula. Equals max, and we'll take our end value as a range minus our begin value, the whole range of cells, close parentheses, and then we hold Control Shift and enter. So that's a quick way in one cell of doing our maximum change. Now let's look at some other examples. Now what we have down here is a stock portfolio. We have stock 1, stock 2, stock 3. And we've estimated that the economy, it could be weak or it could be a boom economy. And the probability for a weak is 0.4. Probability for boom is 0.6. That's obviously not 2009 when I'm shooting this video. We have another example down here that has a more realistic probability for 2009. So we have some estimations for probability of the state of the economy. We have stock returns for a weak economy and a boom economy. And for each stock, we've estimated two different percentages. Notice that this stock does much better in the weak than the boom stock. And here's our weights, 33.333, 0.333. So we have the same number of stocks that we have for 1, 2, and 3. And that makes up our portfolio of stocks. Now here's the situation. When we calculate our expected returns, we're actually going to have this array or range of cells that's 2 rows by 3 columns. And we're going to have to somehow multiply them by the weights, which is 1 row, 3 columns, and the probability of the state of the economy, which is 2 by 1. Now let's scroll up here and remember what we did for our other examples so far. We did a range. So this one was 6 by 1, and this is 6 by 1, and we multiply them so they were the same sizes. So here we have a situation where they're different sizes, and as we'll find out, it is possible to do array formulas on ranges or arrays that are not the same size. Now let's do it by hand first, and our goal is for expected returns we have to say the actual stock return times the weight times the probability, and then add this return times the weight times the probability. So you ready? Equals this stock times this weight times this probability plus this stock times this weight times this probability plus this stock times this weight times this probability. I'm already getting tired of this. And then I'm going to have to lock these. I need to lock these weights because I want to copy it down. So I'm going to click in this one and lock it going down. Click in this E68 and lock it going down. That's that one. And then the F68 and lock it going down. That's that one. Control Enter, and then I'm going to drag it down. And then we can simply add using Alt equals. Now I'm already tired of clicking here, clicking here. That kind of formula, you get lots of room for error. But here we can simply multiply, and we're going to take this range times this range times this range. And when you have this range right here, when you multiply it by, so we have this block 2 by 3, this one's 1 by 3. When we multiply them, this 0.3 will get applied, be multiplied by that and by that. This one will be multiplied by that and then by that. This one, however, which is set up, orientated a little bit differently, this 0.4 will get multiplied by this and this and this. So even though we're multiplying 3 different range, it'll come out in the correct order for multiplying and then adding. Alt equals is the keyboard shortcut for auto sum. Highlight the insides of the table. Times, and I'm actually going to scroll over so we can see all of this. Well, maybe I'm not going to. And then I'm going to click right here. Actually, I'm going to do this one next. So we got that range, the blue range, or that range there times that one. And then finally times, and I'm going to do this one. So we have there our little array formula, and boy, is that easier than doing this. It takes a little while to get used to array formulas, but once you do, you'll find they really can save a lot of time and space. Control Shift Enter, and there it is, all in one formula. Now let's try a different one. This one we have 3 states of the economy, 2 stocks, and 2 weights. I'm going to highlight all of these cells and do the long version first. Equals this times this weight, and I need to lock it going down, plus the next stock times, oh, I did that wrong, times, we got to get our probability for the state of the economy. There we got it. 1, 2, 3 things we're multiplying, and then we're going to add this stock return times this weight, and lock it going down with the F4 key, times our probability of this state. So right now in 2009, that's certainly maybe even low. The boom is, the probability that we're going to be in a boom is very low compared to weakness or normal. Now I can Control Enter and populate all those cells. Come down here, Alt equals, and we get our expected returns for our portfolio. Now, to do it as an array, Alt equals, highlight the guts of the table. 1 stock, 2 stock, but we had to have 3 estimated returns for 3 different states, times the weights times the probability. Control Shift and Enter. You can see the little curly brackets entered in up there. Now there is an An alternative when we're multiplying, remember we looked at the sum product before. I'm going to scroll up and remind ourselves. So here we had units and price, two ranges, and we did our sum function and did Control-Shift-Enter. You can see the curly brackets. And then I'm going to click right here. And notice we did sum product. This array or range with the same dimension as this array or range, separated by a comma. That's the default for sum product. Okay, so got it? The dimensions are the same, and we used a comma. When you get to dimensions that are different for sum product, you just can't do it unless you use multiplication. So here's what you can't do. You can't use the default commas. It's no problem. There's a simple way around this. And it even tells you this in help, that the dimensions for sum product have to be the same. So in our earlier example, we had 4 by 1 times 4 by 1. Well, no problem. We'll do sum product. We'll do our first array here. Range times, and that's the only difference. When you have different shaped arrays or ranges, you simply want to use multiplication. So then I'll highlight the weights times our probabilities of the state, close parentheses. And there it is. Again, the advantage of sum product, it's so common that you have ranges or arrays that you're multiplying and then adding, that they have this function built in. It can handle arrays, and so you don't have to use Control-Shift-Enter. You can just use Enter. And there we have it. We can see our formula right there. No little curly brackets. All right. Now, I want to just look at why this range times this range times this range works. And what I want to do, because we did two examples where we're multiplying ranges that were not the same size. So let's just copy this, the labels and all the numbers. I want to copy it down here and just do a couple little experiments and see what happens. See if we can make sense of why it's all right to multiply different size ranges. I'm going to Control V. Now imagine you had to do this an even longer way than the way we did up here. Let's highlight this range right here, because in that range right there, we want to multiply for each one of these stock returns. And if you look in a finance book, this is what it would tell you. It'd say, oh, take this stock return times the weight times the probability of the state of the economy. Then when we got to here, we do the same thing. This stock return times this weight times this probability for the state of the economy. So you'd have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 calculations. So here it is. I'm going to do it right here, and we're going to use mixed cell references equals this, and the whole, this is a relative cell reference, so it moves down and over, times this weight. And now think about this. For this column, we need this the 0.25 lock, but when we move over to here, we want it to move to there. So I'm going to lock it, F4 key, in front of the number. So it's locked when it's going down, but the column doesn't have a dollar sign, so it's free to move to that way when it moves over to the next column, E, times, and then we have our probability. Now, this one needs, this C98 needs to move down like this, so for each row it grabs a different probability, but when it moves over to a column, it needs to be locked. So I'll hit the F4 key 3 times. Now I can Control Enter, and there it is. We've done this a lot of times in this class. We have some variables across the top here and down the side. So anytime you have that situation and you have a formula like this, which means that number is going to be used in this row, but when you go down, then it moves to the next one. Similarly, the column, that variable right there is going to be using this whole column, but when we move over to the next one, it moves. Anytime you have that situation, you can multiply ranges like this. So here it is, that table. That number is up there. It's going to be using this column, that number in this column, this number in this row, this number in this row. Exactly like we've done so many times. Boom, you're allowed to do an array formula. Let's do it in fast motion right here. Click in C1, 106, and I'm going to type expected returns. And let's first verify alt equals that all of these are equal to our expected return. And they are. Oops, Excel is talking to me. Now we're going to do our array formula. Alt equals, and watch this, I'm going to highlight this range right here, and then times this range right here, times this range right here. Control Shift Enter. Notice that they're completely different sizes and dimensions. Now, let's do it again right here. Alt equals, I'm going to do it in a different order. Times this, times this. Does that matter? Control Shift Enter? No, and here's why. When we did this calculation here with our variables here and here, multiplication is commutative. You can do it in any order. So that's the same when we get to our arrays. I'm going to do sum product this time. I'm going to then take this one times this one times this one. Control Enter. Sure enough, it got the same thing. Let's see how many different ways. We did the blue one, the green one, the purple one. And then we did this one times this one, and we did, so you could do it all the different tried all the different possibilities here, and they would all work. So the ranges, as long as they're set up like a little table like this, you can multiply ranges of different dimensions in any order, and boom, in one cell you have yourself a beautiful array formula that calculates expected returns. All right, in our next video we're going to talk more about the amazing sum product functions. See you then.